Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. We've got a fantastic session now, which I love the title of to begin with, Launching a New Platform and Killing Off Microsoft. There's no one from Microsoft in this room, is there? Before I go any further. But look, Nafisa is the internal comms lead at Yorkshire Housing, and she's going to run through what they did launching their new intranet at Yorkshire Housing. So we will hand over to her.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Okay, so I am super nervous. I've stuck with pictures rather than words because I can't prove my own work, so I'm just going to be really honest there. We didn't kill off Microsoft, we killed off Viva Engage. That's the first thing, just to clarify. There was a reason behind it, and I will talk about it shortly. But I'm going to introduce you to Barry first. So Barry is one of our mobile colleagues. He spends his day out and about on the road. He tends to be in his van. He tends to spend a lot of his day alone. He will check his tablet in the morning or his tough book. He will check what jobs he has, and then he'll go see one customer, and then he'll go over to another customer's house, fix their problems. And then what he will do at the end of the day is he'll go home, and that's it. He relies on mobile phone, so on phone calls, to talk to his manager and with his team. And he doesn't really use social media. So he won't really engage with Teams, for example. He won't check his emails. He will rely on that phone call from his manager, whenever it is, to have that conversation and to get a particular update. Once a quarter, Barry will actually go into what we call a depot. So he will go to a brew and breather session where he gets to see his teammates, have a chat, have a bit of a chill out, just get to know each other as well. 40% of our colleagues at Yorkshire Housing are a Barry. Then we've got Trisha. Trisha's not like Barry at all. Trisha really likes social media. She really likes using her desktop to consume information and news. Most of her day is spent on her laptop or a desktop if that's what she wants. She tends to work 9 to 5. She spends a lot of her days on Teams calls, looking at documents, lots of Microsoft products, maybe Viva Engage, but generally she tends to spend her day on the typical office 9 to 5. And then we've got Ali. So Ali tends to work in one of our hubs. He will also work a typical day, 5 days a week, and he'll do 9 to 5. Ali makes about 10% of our organisation is made up of an Ali. Trisha, should have said, is about 50%. So you can see there at Yorkshire Housing, actually, our colleagues are so different from one another. So our colleagues, at the heart of everything we do is giving customers a place that they're proud to call home. So we are a social landlord. We will rent and sell properties. We do the build, but we also then go in and do the repairs, fixing problems, just anything and everything to do with homes for our customers. So what was the issue? Oh, there were so many. Let's start with Barry. Doesn't look at anything, doesn't read anything, doesn't want to know anything. Unless you give it on to him on a plate, he won't consume any type of information, but he will also say he doesn't know what's going on in the organisation. Partly, our channels weren't fit as well, so we did have an intranet. The intranet was built on SharePoint, and that SharePoint site wasn't accessible on mobile. So again, for Barry, that wasn't actually relevant for him. It didn't work for him. Most of the apps and tools that he was trying to access were broken, so he would generally just use the ones that he knew about. Our channels also didn't match our values and behaviours. So these are the values and behaviours that we have at Yorkshire Housing. And our channels weren't fun. They weren't exciting. They were so dry, boring, Anything that comes with a SharePoint that has been built by various IT people is not going to be fun, and that's what we had. So this was our old intranet. We called it Yoho Plus, YOLO. Our intranet, you can see in the top corner, the extensions were broken. So that is actually the Viva Engage extension. It did not work for us. We also, on surface level, it doesn't look as bad as some of the intranets we've got out there. But again, quite dry, quite boring, not on brand. It does what it does, but that's about it. The news was shown in this way, so we did have not a really good search functionality, but search worked for us. Again, linear, really boring, really dry, not engaging, didn't give you any type of personalization, didn't give you anything that you want. We also had lots of lovely Teams pages. And again, IT built these. We had no hand in those in IC. So again, not on brand at all. Lots of information thrown in. As a colleague, I wouldn't want to read them. So, we knew other colleagues didn't want to do. And then it gets better. This was a team page as well. So it's tile after tile after tile. And imagine looking at that in an emergency. So this was actually business continuity. So imagine looking at that in an emergency. Where do you go? What do you look at? So back about 2 years ago, we launched our new business strategy. So our strategic priorities shifted back, what year are we in? So back in 2022, 23, and we knew our channels weren't fit for it at all. We wanted to be customer obsessed. We wanted to use data. We wanted to be preemptive. We wanted to, just do the best that we could do for all of our colleagues. So at the time of launching our strategy, we knew we needed to look at our channels as well internally. So when we started looking at what we wanted from IC at Yorkshire Housing, we wanted it to be personalised, we wanted it to be easy, we wanted it to be relevant, smart, self-serving and energetic. So somebody like Barry could go on, have a look at what he needs, when he needs it, without having the obstacle of loggings, checking in with IT or anything else. So I'll start with, this is what we have, but this isn't what we have. So the first thing we actually did was split out our SharePoint. So our intranet was built on SharePoint, so it held all the documents. So we split it out into 3. So the first one is SharePoint, but that is the team sites that are then public. So basically for comms, any documents that we wanted to make available to the business would go into that area. So permissions were set so people could access it. Then we had your own team site. Permissions were locked down there. So you will only see what's relevant for your team. You can access it through Teams. And then we've got Central. Central is the name of our new colleague comms platform. And this is what we launched with. So we launched with a very simple look and feel. We knew some of our colleagues weren't ready for that journey. So we went with things that they were familiar with. If you have a look, Central Scoop is where you will get all of the latest news. It's a carousel, so it'll rotate, or you can click through it. There's a bit of personalization at the top. We've got IT alerts. IT are keen to have their alerts on every home page. That's a battle I'm still fighting. But we've got IT alerts, and then we've got some quick links on there. So we've got links to, for example, our brand hub, to SharePoint, to some of the more other initiatives that we have running, and then go to sites. We've got the top menu at the top, so that will take you to news, team spaces, benefits of working at Yorkshire Housing. It will take you to the social feed, and you will get an alert at the top as well. So we actually have 2 versions of our home pages. So we have a version that is for somebody like Trisha and for Ali, who will have the desktop. So they will have a version of their content. And then mobile colleagues will see a completely different news story that will come up on their homepage. It's very personalised to their role, to what's relevant to them. I couldn't get a screenshot of it because I'm not a mobile colleague, but all of our colleagues will see slightly different things compared to what they've signed up to, groups that they might belong to, or what their actual role is. So there's a big part in personalisation there. And I think it goes back to everything that's been talked about today. People want to see the news that's relevant to them. They want to feel seen. They want to feel like they belong. Seeing some, as a Barry out and about, if I saw something about an amazing event that was happening at one of our hubs, but I spend all day in a van that hasn't been cleaned or looked after, then, that won't be fun. So a couple of examples of what other pages look like. So this is a team page. This is our comms and brand team page. So I'm hoping there's no typos in this one. But again, we've got some articles. So again, quick links are very different here. So any team page that you go to, the quick links will be different. So it depends on what the rest of the business will need from that team. We have links off to forms that you can connect to. We've got downloads, so photo consent forms. We've got resources that you can go off to, so this will take you to the public SharePoint area. We've pulled out things that we know will be relevant to colleagues, and we've worked with the business on all of these. So across all of the team pages, you will see some things different. You won't see the same information because every team is different. This is an example of our brand hub. Again, you have quick links at the top. You've got a link to our brand guidelines, some templates. a bit of information then, and there's so much energy here. Just go back to the original ones that I showed you. They were so lackluster, but these gave us so much energy, and it just re-energized the business as well when we have started doing some of that communications. We also link off to, again, resources at the top here. So really simple, really clean, on brand, follows our tone of voice as well. And it is accessible, again, on a mobile phone. So regardless of which device you use to, it will be rendered down to it. So it won't be broken, for example, if you're using an iPhone or if you're using a Samsung, you won't see bits of it that are broken. So I know Staffbase will be very happy to hear that. This is another example. This is our diversity and inclusion page. So again, links off to our policy. So we do link off to areas where documents are stored, but for really important documents which we know people might want straight away or not have to search around for, we just wanted to remove some of the barriers. So we've got those as downloads as well that are available. Again, it is what it is. It's much cleaner than what we had. It is on brand and it is great. But how did we get there? Which, again, it does take a while to get there. But how did we get there? Lots of hours, lots of weeks, maybe some months, lots of conversations. And I think the main thing for us was we had a great exec team that were on board. So our leadership was on board in every conversation right from the get-go. The moment we had identified that this was the problem, this is what we're trying to achieve, this is the vision that we have at Yorkshire Housing, the CEO, the exec team, they were completely sold on it, but actually they went into the room and had those conversations for us. So it wasn't IC or it wasn't comms that were going in there and saying, you please use our intranet or please move your stuff over from SharePoint. It was our sponsors that were going in there and having those conversations. So he's going to hate me for saying this, but I feel like Nick is our Dolly Parton. So I feel like if you were in Anne-Marie's session from earlier, Nick is our Dolly Parton. He's the one that is out there championing comms and championing what we do. We did lots of show and tells as well. We involved the sponsors, but before we did that, we worked with teams to really understand what they want. So we went out to our colleague forum, we have a homes and places forum, and we just had lots of conversations to understand actually what do people want from the different areas. So what do they want from the team side? Who's going to be responsible in managing it? Do they have the right type of skill sets in there? And it was a lot of conversations, but it was also a lot of build. So I think I spoke to somebody earlier who said they were building at the moment. We spent many hours building, rebuilding, testing, building again. And part of it was every iteration we went back to the business and got that feedback from them. We went back to teams, we went back to our colleague forums, we went back to our heads, we went back to different managers. Lots of conversations to really understand what is it that they want, but how do we make it right for them? And I guess before launch, one of the things that we did want to do was reduce noise for colleagues. So as part of the conversations, colleagues were telling us that they were getting a lot of information from us, whether it was Viva Engage, whether it was an email newsletter, whether it was the intranet or anywhere else. They were just saying that, it's too much for us. We're also on this change journey. We're implementing a new tech as well. Somebody said there's about 39 change programs happening at any one time. So imagine the number of emails that colleagues might get as well. So we put a stop to all of those. This is where we killed off Viva Engage as well. So when we looked at the stats of Viva Engage, somebody like Barry couldn't actually use Viva Engage. He couldn't get it on his mobile. It would sometimes be broken. He would go into it and, the information was 4 weeks old. So he'd just switch off. He wouldn't engage. I think we had around 10 colleagues that would be regularly posting on Viva Engage and maybe 50 people looking at it on average, no more than that. So generally to have that as an extra channel was something that we couldn't actually manage. So then we went over to launch. So after doing the whole rebuild, build, all of that process, we got to launch it. And this was the fun part. So we recruited central reps from across the business. So our reps are nominated by the actual heads and managers of teams. So they've pinned them out. We haven't said that this person needs to be a rep. It's a conversation that we wanted the heads to have with their team, so there was a bit more accountability there. The reason for why we wanted that is because eventually we'll be rolling out like managing their team pages on Central to the reps, so they will be making the changes and updates. So we needed to know that the person was right. It can't be somebody that you just pick off a list and that's it. They also needed to have that tech sense, I will say, or be ready to go through the training so they can update SharePoint, look at things like permissions, look at how problems are fixed. So IC are not doing the general, not day-to-day, but we're able to move away and do some more of the strategic work. So we had the central reps, and again, they were brought in well before we launched. So they were involved in that build process, but they were also involved in launching it out to their teams. So they helped get Central out in their teams, talk them through how it's working, help with any tech issues that they might be having at the time. Food is a great sell, donuts, pizza, you name it. If you have free food, people will come. I know they say go to the people, but bring your people to you with food as well. So we had a launch activity at our hubs as well. We got people involved. Again, we did show and tells. We had the leadership team there that were doing the, talking through it. We did the demos. We went around the room, helped people navigate the system, really understand it. We did go out to the people as well. So we went to the brew and breather sessions. So we talked to them in a space that they were comfortable with, the type of people that they were comfortable. Again, this is the 40% of colleagues that didn't really engage with anything. So this was one of our main areas that we really concentrated our efforts on. And we did lots of, we call it Central on Tour. So we've gone round to different teams after launch. We've talked through Central. We've shown them the back end so they understand things like the metrics that we see as well, just so that they can see, for full transparency, what comms can see. But then we've gone through issues that they might be having, where it's not working for them, where it could be working better, information that we need to add, again, back to that whole build process. We've done that on a one-to-one basis with the team, so we're having those conversations throughout, and we are still doing Central on Tour. We launched 6 months ago, and in 6 months we've had, I think 90% of our colleagues are now on Central, so for us that's a win. But we also had competitions. Everybody loves a competition, and at Yorkshire Housing, people love sheep a lot. Like, I don't get it, but other people do. And sheep are like involved in everything. So we did things like scavenger hunts. We had update your profile competitions. We said you could win big if you acknowledged particular posts. Things like house rules were acknowledged. And generally, the whole reason why we had the competitions was so that people could navigate around Central, so they really understood how to use it, the types of information that was on there, which teams had what, and that whole scavenger hunt was like that. I think we gave, in the first week, around £500 worth of prizes away as well. So we didn't just do a 1, 2 and 3 and that's it. We wanted more people to participate, so we just upped the amount of prize money that was available. And again, because we had the buy-in from the execs teams, we were able to have those conversations and just stress the importance of it. We didn't spend all of the launch budget though, so we are bringing that back in and using that throughout the year as well. And yeah, just some of the successes. So at 6 weeks, we had 80% adoption. 1 in 2 mobile colleagues were using the platform. So 1 in 2 Barrys were on Central and using it. And we had over 300 posts shared, and we were getting an average of 85% on interaction. I was told by Staffbase at the time that, you won't be able to sustain that. So partly that was a challenge for me. I will go on to that next. But on average, around 40% of our colleagues were actively going on to Central and using it on a day-to-day basis. So they were making that effort to go onto it and check it. Our content was getting a lot of engagement as well. So 1 in 2 colleagues would read something, go back I think the most hits we ever got on something was about 60 views on a piece of article, like a piece of news. I don't know how much that would be in percentages. I should have written that down. But our homepages had 23,000 visits. We had over 7,000 visits to the social feed. So yeah, at 6 weeks, I was pretty impressed. I did aim for about 100% adoption, and somebody said, don't do that to yourself, that will kill you. Never do that. But 6 months on, so we hit 6 months a couple of weeks ago, 95% of our colleagues are on there now. We've got a couple of Barrys that are still resisting. We're still going out. We're still having those conversations. We have got 85% as active users as well. So again, that's quite good for us. We've got colleagues that are actually going in and checking it. Now, we do look at active and engaged users slightly different for us on Central. We find that because of behaviours of somebody like Barry, we wouldn't expect him to go in and comment and like stuff that we're sharing. Whereas if you're a Trisha, you probably will do that. You're used to it. So we tend to track engagement slightly different for the different colleagues that we have. So for somebody like Trisha, we will check on engagement levels, so how much they're commenting and posting. But for somebody like Barry, we'll check on active because it means they're logging in, they're checking in amongst the day. We've got 3 out of 4 mobile colleagues on there. Again, that was a big driver for us. Just over 45k homepage visits, around 25,000 social feed visits, and interaction, we kept it at 85%. So that was like, again, my big win. I was like, that's not going to happen. Our success manager said, it will drop, be ready for it to drop. And I was like, I'm not letting that happen. I am sharing a weekly report, which shifted to a monthly report. I do not want that to happen. So again, we were going out to the business, we were having those conversations, giving them reasons to come back. So again, we shifted how we were doing news. We didn't rely solely on long form content, but the social feed just took off. So when I say we killed off Viva Engage, the social feed was the best thing that came out of Central for us. We never set out to be a social network for our colleagues. Community played a big part, but for us, what we were trying to deliver, that was very tiny. And partly it's because the stats that we had from Viva Engage showed that people weren't interested. Actually, it's the channel that meant that people weren't interested. So the social feed, I think it's had around 500 posts in 6 months from colleagues, 8,000 likes and 1,500 comments. And again, this is, compare it to the 10 users. For us, that's a huge win. And the social feed is good for us because somebody like Barry doesn't feel seen when they're doing the work. As somebody that's out there doing the repairs out in customers' homes, they don't really shout about their work that they're doing, but the social feed gives them or their manager an opportunity to, stick a picture up saying what a fab job they're doing, and the business has generally just taken to this. And for us in IC, it has helped in a way because we're not going out and asking for those good news stories to share. We're seeing them there and we're able to pick stuff out and say, okay, that's great that you put it on the social feed, but could we make it a news story? Could we make it into a bigger piece, understand what you're doing? We're on a culture change program at the moment as well. So for us, seeing people talk about what we're doing through culture change is great. So we're trying to be more customer obsessed. We've got managers that are out on challenges. We've got individuals that are going shadowing teams. So they are sharing all of that on here. And for us, it means that we don't have to go out there, do the legroom, chase people, write content, ask them to sign it off. They're just going out, sharing the pictures, sharing videos, sharing whatever it is that they're doing. So for us, it's great. We have, again, our leadership, our team are quite involved. So they'll openly share stuff that they're doing internally and externally as well. So they're also on there. They're going in there, liking and commenting. Tagging is a big thing as well. People really enjoy that. So again, for us, it has just helped develop that community feel. And after all of this, you'll say, is that it? No, I still want to keep my job. So we have got a lot of things planned at the moment. So I know people tend to say, let's make it perfect and then launch it. There were a couple of things that we were waiting on in the back end that we were trying to work on, which did delay the launch for us slightly, but then actually we thought we need to go with a minimum viable product. I call it the Salesforce approach, so get it in people's hand and then keep improving it, the agile method for people that are serious. But we've got additional user groups that we're setting up in the background. So we're working with IT and our HR systems to get that data into the system. We've got the basics of it in there at the moment. So you can, for example, segment by working from home colleagues and colleagues that are out and about. But we are going further in now. So we have now got directorate level information in there, team level information. And by the end of summer, I've been promised that we can get sub-team level information. So just to explain, we can see what people and culture are doing, then we can see how comms are engaging with content, and then we'll be able to see how IC are engaging with information as well. We can see how much people are posting, where they're using it, the times that they're engaging with information as well. So we can really pin down how we do that personalization when it comes to content, and really target information that's specific for different teams as well. Because even though you might work in repairs, you might be fixing boilers. One person might be doing a different type of repair. So, the types of work that people do is different as well. So we want to be able to target those stories, those updates to them. We are building new home pages. So when we went out with our home pages, we did kind of lift and shift our old content because it wasn't really broken in that sense. But we had far too many channels, far too many, and especially if you were on a mobile, it wasn't going to work. But again, we needed to get it out, otherwise we'd just be building forever. So now we are trying to build that whole hierarchy of news into things. So things you must know, things that are nice to know, and like the things that are, are good to know as well. So, we're really able to segment the news in that sense. And partly because some of the feedback that we are having from colleagues is that news just disappears off the homepage because there's so much of it coming through. Every time they look at it, some things might disappear. We're also simplifying menu and channels. We realised when we were doing the feedback that actually people didn't go in, click through lots of long menus. So we're simplifying that. So now once we simplify channels, we will have shorter menus that people need to browse through as well. So again, they can get what they need really quick. The search is great on Central as well. So that's the feedback that we've had. We are handing over team pages. So a couple of weeks ago, we trained up all of the Central reps. So we've given them access to their team pages as well. So they can go in, change content, make tweaks, say who's in the team, do really basic stuff because, we don't want them to break it almost immediately. But we are handing over to them, so they're having a bit of a play about at the moment. They've got a test area right now, so they're going in, understanding how to format things, how to build not build new pages, but how to edit pages. I will not give control of building new pages because that's where it all goes wrong. And then ability to opt into comms. So a lot of our colleagues wanted personalised communications. That was one of the reasons why we bought the system that we did. So with the additional users, we're also looking at how we set up our network so people can subscribe to content. So on their homepage, if, for example, you have subscribed to the menopause network's information, but you're not part of the network itself, any public-facing, so any all-colleague-facing comms that they want to push out there, they'll push it out in that way. So for us, again, it's another way to get that personalisation done for colleagues. And then we are moving over team comms as well. So I think those are 2 points, actually, so I'll just not talk into that. But yeah, we're moving over team. Actually, it is slightly different. Central allows you to create private groups as well. So the system allows you to create private groups. So some team communications will be moving over. So again, think of somebody like Barry. He won't want to check Teams. He won't want to check emails. He won't want to see his head's email coming in. So we're testing it at the moment. We're moving one particular team over, and the head will be doing the communication. So think closed Facebook groups, but on our comms platform. So they can push out information in real time. And for us, that's something that they really, really want. So that's something we're able to deliver. We've also got things like policies moving over. So if you are in a senior leadership role on your homepage, if there's any briefings that get shared, instead of relying on your email, they will come through directly to you there. So that's another way. There's lots of push notifications. Look at how we're using email and push as well. Again, really sparse with that at the moment, but for things like policy changes, we might consider it, especially for smaller groups. And if I had to leave you with one thing, I would say, whatever you're building, any channel shifting you're doing, do it with your colleagues, do it with the people that you will communicate with, because ultimately it will be in their hands. They'll give you feedback that can sometimes be hard, but at the end of the day, they will give you the information to help make it into a channel that is a success. So that's what I'd leave you with.
That was incredible. Genuinely incredible. We sit through a lot of these a lot of the time, and we're heavily involved in this space as simply as well. Well done, Nafisa. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
No need to be nervous. Let's say that. You've actually received about 30 questions as well. I don't want to scare you, but let me go through these. Please continue to vote for these because we'll do this in a democratic way so that the most votes gets to the top. Okay. The first question here is, who built the new version, comms or IT? And have you got any advice for how you can work constructively with IT teams to launch in a new space?
So the new versions were built, just trying to think. So we had a steering group that was set up. We had a PM on there. So we had a project manager that was on there to keep us on track every step of the way. IT was involved. So I think the actual build itself of web pages was comms, but the background, the systems, getting users into it, all of that was IT.
Okay, great. Okay. How much do you allow individuals to update pages themselves? Does a lot of the updates sit with the comms team?
So at the moment they do with us. We phased out our launch, so we said after 6 months we would hand it over to the central reps. We trained them about a fortnight ago, so at the moment they're still testing, having a play about with how to use the system. We have asked them that we will be checking content as well, so we'll do random checks. If they are making updates, flag them to us if we don't get the alerts ourselves so that we can go in, check everything's fine. But generally, I think it's to them as and when they need to make the changes as well.
Cool. Okay, and this is a really super important one, obviously. How have you measured the success of the new intranet? I know you flashed up some stats, but is there an overarching?
There's a lot of data we're gathering. So there's the data that we have from Staffbase, but we are looking at things like the surveys that go out. So our colleague surveys, we've just had a new one go out. So we've got questions in there that will look at it. We're also doing a lot of qualitative feedback as well. So going out to our colleague forums, understanding how it's landing, how it's working with people. You can generally see peaks and drops as well. So we're looking at content, we're having a test about with different things that are working. We will compare and contrast different types of information as well. We'll also test like when we send a notification out versus when we don't and what readership is like. So there's lots of background stuff that we have access to that we never did before.
Okay, fantastic. And this is an interesting one, actually. It's just dropped down the list. Thank you, by the way, for voting.
I feel like I should be scared now.
No. This is a good one. So this is actually around Viva Engage. And obviously with the news last week around Meta, Workplace by Meta pulling out of the market, and obviously there's a lot of noise around what that means moving forward. What were the disadvantages of Viva Engage? So why did you think about, actually, maybe we need a new platform here?
It was a Friday conversation we had with one of the execs where we figured out that we couldn't integrate Viva Engage into Central. So if we had the social feed showing, it would still appear broken and you would have to log in again. So there was an additional barrier. And then sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't work. It doesn't work with single sign-on all the time, so all of our systems do. So that was a conversation that we had. We went through worst case, best case, all of that. The next week, we came up with some solutions and we said, okay, let's just go with what our gut says. My gut said we switch it off because, again, the metrics weren't great. We couldn't look and manage two different channels. If we went to Viva Engage for example, good news stories, we'd have an additional social feed on Central that we would also have to monitor. So it was just one of those, let's make life easier for ourselves.
Any pushback from IT on that?
No.
Okay.
No, they were involved in the conversations. When you set out what the problem is, what the workarounds are, how it will impact colleagues, it made sense. We also had the conversations with colleagues as well. So we'd reach out to our reps and say, this is a problem. This is how we think we can solve it. What do you think? We did reach out to the super users of Viva Engage, those 10 people that would post random updates. We went out to them and we had conversations and we just told them what it is, how it would impact colleagues, and they were totally on board.
Awesome. And then linked to this same point, actually, do you give any guidance around social posts on the new feed?
Yes, so our house rules have it on there. So, when I said you have to acknowledge, when you first go into Central, there's a bit of a tour of how to do it. But then also, our colleagues are adults. Like, they should know how to behave in certain situations, know what to post. We do monitor it. But again, because they've gone through the acknowledgement, generally we trust them to do the right thing as well. We know there are some things they shouldn't be sharing. We'll pull them up on it quite fast. And we have access to delete stuff and edit stuff as well. So,
have you had any incidents? I feel like there might be a story.
I have edited a new exec's post because they ignored the International Women's Day content, that, like the theme that we were monitoring, we were using. So they had gone with a completely different one. So I've just gone in, dropped them a message to say, this is it. This was what had gone round. You probably hadn't seen it because they were still so fairly new. But yeah, they were fine with that.
Okay. This is linked actually around behaviour change. So have you seen any behaviour changes in your non-desk workforce since launch?
I think their sense of belonging is higher. I wouldn't be able to measure it, but generally the conversations that we have, there seems to be a bit more pride in the fact that other colleagues know about what they're doing as well. Initially, there was always a lot of reluctancy, like, oh, so Tricia won't know what I'm doing on a Friday afternoon when there's an emergency. But it feels like they feel seen now. But there are other things we're also doing to bring them along as well, so that like they're front and centre of the conversations. But yeah, because they're getting tagged in updates, they're seeing things, they're seeing their colleagues when they go to the depots, they're seeing these updates, their managers are sharing them with them, they feel a bit more seen.
This is an interesting question actually, because a lot of the times when you go through a big transformation like this, you see it's the model that exists afterwards, which is often the one that's forgotten up front. So 6 months in, here's the question. 6 months in, how much team resource is dedicated to this in terms of upkeep development?
So there's only 2 of us at the moment, 2 of us. I don't know, we still do a lot of business as usual. I'd say about 50 to 60% of our time at the moment, but because we haven't handed things over, so we're still involved in like building things, which can take a bit of time. So really understanding if somebody wants to build a new area, how do we work with them to get the right type of information? But as we've also got more familiar with it and how colleagues are using it, that time seems to have been lessened. So if, for example, you're using WordPress, the first time you go into it or the 10th time you go into it, you'll still be clicking around trying to figure out your way, but the 100th time, it feels like you could do it with your eyes shut. So it is one of those as well. So I think over time, because we're more familiar with it, I don't think it's a true reflection of the actual work that goes into it. We've also got templates set up. We've got other things that we've done in the background to make life easier for ourselves as well, but also tell people to share it on the social feed.
What social feed tech platform are you using if it's not Viva Engage? And another question, which I doubt you'll answer, but what was the cost?
So the social feed is the central one, so the one that's built in by Staffbase. So we use Staffbase. So it's the actual social feed that's built in by the system. And cost, if you want to grab me outside, I'm happy to have this conversation. You do need like a budget to be able to do this. I'm not going to lie. You can't do it for free. You need to have that budget, but again, more importantly, you need that buy-in from the senior leaders so that they can find that budget for you. Okay,
this is a good question actually. So this is moving now into launch, so deploying. What comms approach did you take when it came to generating anticipation around the newly designed platform?
How you would launch any new product. We did a rollout. So we started using our existing channels to do things like countdowns, for example. So I think about 6 weeks before, we were already counting down to the launch of it. We were going out to teams to say something is coming. We'd already started doing show and tell. So we had our central reps on board. So they knew something. They were able to go back, give certain updates to colleagues. We were having those conversations with our forums. So our colleague forums happen once a month. So we have 2 forums. We have one for people like Barry, and we have another one for people like Tricia. So colleague forum for generally your desk workers and then the deskless. We'd go in there, give them regular updates as well, do the show and tells there. So they had something to go back. There was lots of conversations involved in it.
this is linked to what you're talking about here, actually, and the different personas that you have. So is the look and feel for the desk-based audience and the mobile audience the same? Is it it's just the content which is different through the targeting?
So the look and feel is all the same.
Okay.
In some areas we haven't used what Staffbase would call widgets. So things like the boxes. I'll see if I can go back to it. Let me just see. Oh, it'll be right at the beginning. But for example, in some places we haven't got the boxes because on a mobile device, like a tiny phone, they will take up a lot of space. So we might just have links. The social feed is not embedded on the new homepage for mobile colleagues because there's a button at the bottom of the screen which takes you off to the social feed. The layout is different as well. There's things that are not included in the one that's for mobile colleagues. So on the mobile version, there are a couple of things now that aren't included, but that's because we've just gone through like rebuilding the home pages and working again directly with the colleagues now that they know how central is, you know, what it is, how to use it, how to go around it. You know, they've said they want certain things on there, so it's slightly different, but it is built for the people, not by the people though, because we've built it.
Love that. What outcome are you most proud of since launching?
I think the sense of pride in colleagues, just them feeling that they're seen, because that's really important. Like, it's so hard always trying to like do a job, always trying to prove that you're doing it, but you know, you'll often see that on certain awards that you might have internally, you might have certain categories or certain managers that are more likely to make those updates, but giving you a channel that you can access, share your updates, or have your manager share for you or somebody in your team, you know, that just brings a whole different level of recognition. And I think that's it for me, like people just being really proud that they could, you know, share what they're doing and really get those stories out there as well.
That's great answer. And you mentioned, I think it was Nick. So the question here is, how did you get Nick on board? Nick is...
Nick is amazing.
CEO?
He's our CEO. Okay. So Nick Atkin is, he's like the dream CEO person. He is amazing. He's so tech savvy. He gets it. He is one of those that once you go in, he wants you to go in, try something. It's that whole dare to fail approach. He's so on it. And he's so Yorkshire as well. He's got a podcast. I normally wouldn't plug it, but he's got a podcast, have a listen to it, or just if you ever hear a snippet of him, he is your typical Yorkshire bloke that has worked all the way from, you know, going around on a motorbike, collecting rent, and then worked his way completely up the system. So he gets social housing, he gets colleagues in different spaces, he gets our customers. So for him, it was the right thing to do. So it was the right thing for all of us to do, and he got it, and like all of our exec team do.
Amazing. Yeah. Just a couple of more quick questions. Did the uplift in channel interaction impact overall colleague experience happiness, ENPS overall?
I think it does. I think if you were posting something and you didn't see any interaction beneath it, chances are you probably wouldn't carry on with that behaviour. So I think the more people saw their managers, heads, other people in their team sharing, posting, commenting, liking on stuff, the more people are likely to do stuff. And it's also that if I see somebody like me doing it, like, what's stopping me? So it is some of that as well.
Final question, and then one final statement. So what was the biggest challenge in the whole project? What was your biggest challenge?
IT.
Right.
Not IT in the system, not people. The people were great. Like, we had some amazing conversations, but it was just the workarounds and, you know, understanding how to connect it to single sign-on, how to get past the security that we'd set up as well, because, oh gosh, the security is on a different level altogether. But I think it's just that implementing, the user groups. We wanted to launch with having that engagement so we could understand on a sub-team level what people are doing, but we couldn't launch with that. It did initially delay us for about 3 months, but then 3 months after we were like, we're going to do this. Let's do it without, and then let's do that work in the background. And the other point would probably be SharePoint and people not setting up the right permissions on documents, which was fun in the first week. That was the first call that we got, so that was the only problem really. But
well, this is one from me actually. What does the next 6 months look like?
So that is some of the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But have you got an overarching goal?
I'd say 100% still, but we'd never get 100% on there. We've got board on there though, so like I'm happy with that. I think it's looking again at the content and the different types of content that we can serve through Central for me. I can't think that far ahead yet. I'm just like in this moment, but it is. I think for me, it would probably be continue that interaction level, continue having people sharing, that not dropping off, because it is still a fairly new system. You know, people can just think, okay, but also, you know, staff turnover, people coming on board, them also understanding Central, the purpose of it as well. So really understanding that as well.
Let's end with this one, which says, no question, looks fab, well done.
Oh, thank
Nafisa,
you.
thank you so much. Great session.
Thank you.